Hey, welcome to your best bets Monday nights, and we're going to preview the Arnold Palmer Invitational, another elevated event on the PGA Tour. Review the Honda Classic, do some LIV golf stuff. Might throw in some Nielsen ratings analysis. Preview the Arnold Palmer Invitational, like I said. Go through the odds, give some best bets, and see what else we can get into along the way. Coming out of his darkness retreat, Scott Pieri. First time in a few months.
Good to be
Coming
here.
out at the same time as Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what that says.
I don't know either. I don't either.
Johnny Strauzer's here. Things were moving very quickly for you today at work, but we're here, and I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Glad to be here. Glad to talk about some golf and something to end the day on a good note.
Yes. Ending the day on a good note yesterday was Chris Kirk. First win in 8 years. I guess I didn't realize it had been that long for him. I mean, he was one of those guys that came out and won, felt like every other year out of college. But I guess I didn't realize it had been 8 years. I think everyone felt pretty happy. Feel good story. We all know what I think Johnny and you and I talked about a couple of years ago when he got, when he that was such a clutch performance at the Sony a couple of years ago for him to keep his card. And now he wins at the Honda and overcoming all the alcohol issues, personal issues. Real feel-good win for the tour on a week where not a lot of stars played. I think this was kind of a best-case scenario, and it was a great tournament. Scott, what do you think?
I caught a lot of the back nine on Sunday, and I'd kind of bounced in and out in the during the week a little bit. Some of the replays in the morning when I was working at home. I tell you what, guys, the shot he hit on the final in the playoff. Well, first off, the shot he hit into the green on the 72nd hole. I mean, Johnny, tell me, was it 3 inches, 4 inches from hitting grass? I mean, that was awfully close. I mean, He carried it pretty far on that line. I guess my question was, if it would have got over the water there, even if it would have went into maybe the water on the other side, he would have dropped right there, up and down for 5. It was a pretty unfortunate break, but for the shot he hit in the playoff is one of the best shots I've seen all year myself. I mean, to hit it like this or whatever it was. The Cole kid is a fun story. Laura Ball was somebody I remember. I don't know if I'm a little older than you guys, but she was sort of that cutie pie that came out that had the looks, the personality, the game, and I think she won a couple times early on the LPGA tour and was sort of a budding star. She fought some alcoholism and some things, and I didn't realize it was her son until they showed her on I think maybe the 16th green. She was sitting in the stand. So that kid's got some game. I think he could do okay out there myself. He's not a very big guy, and he doesn't hit it as far as a JT does, but man, he's got some kahunas.
Yeah. That second shot by Chris Kirk on the 72nd hole, pretty wild. I mean, he had been hitting that slinging hook all day, his typical shot. Actually, both of those guys were, no matter what the whole location is, they just played their shot. You could kind of tell right when he hit it that was it just was left out there, didn't come back, hits the rocks, almost hits that Honda CRV in the middle of the lake, which was almost just inadvertently awesome. But hell of an up and down from there to force the playoff. Cole had his chance there. He kind of made a mess of it around the green, but he still, got in there with the par. Johnny, what'd you make of it? What do you make of Eric Cole coming up? I mean, all these wins on the mini tours and really fighting his way through the last couple of years. What'd you make of it all?
Well, I mean, I think the two guys who ended up finishing in the playoff there, I mean, this two pretty remarkable stories. I mean, I don't think you can truly, understand or appreciate how amazing the Chris Kirk story is. Being the great player from Georgia and suffering through some serious, mental issues, battling depression and alcoholism, and just hitting what presumably I'm sure was rock bottom. In his life, and he could have easily chosen a different path, and it could have spiraled out of control and never to be heard from again. But for him to to come back from that and play good golf, and his golf swing was great. His ball speed was up there. He was hitting a lot of really good shots, and even that shot into 18 wasn't too bad. It just was probably the one that he wanted to hit that hard draw, and it didn't work. And then you look at Eric Cole, and from his upbringing and trying to find that moment in his life, in his professional life, winning an event or contending or becoming a name like that, and doing it. This is for the, like you said, for the type of field that this drew compared to these elevated events. This was probably the best possible scenario that could have happened, and I thought it was captivating. I mean, Eric couldn't miss a short putt down the stretch there, and in the playoff, really could have made that thing. I think it hit the lip there pretty hard there. So, it ended up being, all things considered, last year that Honda's going to be the sponsor, and who knows of what's going to happen with this event going forward. For this to emerge and for these guys to meet in a playoff, I thought it was great. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And I've, ever since Chris Kirk came back and he finished solo at Sony to retain his card and everything, I've been a big fan of him. And I'm a big fan of Eric Cole for the perseverance that he showed, by just hanging in there, and didn't quite, you could tell he was nervous and his game wasn't quite there, but he was doing everything he could to make that playoff. And I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, Eric Cole's second in putting for the week. I heard 49 out of 49 inside 5 feet. Just kind of felt like he was going to make everything. I felt like he was going to make the one in the playoff. But a really great story of just perseverance. 34, 35 years old, just grinding his way. He got status on Korn Ferry in 2020 by Monday qualifying. So just a real good story, someone to root for. And I think this is again, best case scenario for the tour in a week where there's not a lot of stars, but really great stories, guys you want to pull for. And the stakes really meant something for a guy like Chris Kirk trying to get back into the majors, a guy like Eric Cole, trying to basically solidify his spot on tour. So it really felt like the outcome mattered a lot, unlike another tour that we'll talk about later. But also in contrast to the last non-elevated event we had at Pebble, where it was kind of sleeping, Justin Rose at Runaway. And, I can't think that was ideal for the tour, but this just felt, like you mentioned, Johnny, really captivating. So I enjoyed it. Honda is, like I said, we talked about schedule casualty, unfortunately. I don't know if I love Florida golf as far as I think I don't know if it's the best test of golf, but it might be the most entertaining form of professional golf. You think about everything that can happen through the bear trap, Paul Azinger bingo card. But the 18th hole is just an amazing finishing hole for theater, and a lot of different scenarios on the table. And we saw it on the 72nd hole. So I don't know what I have as far as the question, Scott, but I don't know your thoughts on the elevated events versus what we've seen so far. Like at Pebble, we saw Honda, and the differing fields.
A couple of things when John was talking was, what I want to say real quick is, one of the things I think about Chris Kirk that I think that really shows where he's at right now is he pretty much led wire to wire. He was darn close, and he really didn't back up at all. I think we're going to see him keep playing well. I really do. And as far as the entertainment of Florida events, it's the hardest golf on tour. I mean, the hardest golf to go play for me right now would be, okay, go down to South Florida and go try to shoot something in the 67, 68 range versus going to the desert and doing something like that. So that's why I think it's so entertaining, is because it can be a disaster everywhere, even hitting short shots around the green out of the Bermuda rough. But I think one of the things that's coming out of this elevated, non-elevated thing, and I think this is the first event that's really showing it is, and I wasn't really thinking about it until I watched this weekend, is exactly what you said. There's going to be situations where we're going to get a lot of underdogs playing for some real stuff, whether that's status, keep your card, trying to get inside the top, whatever in the world. I didn't really think about that when they were talking about elevated versus non-elevated, but we saw that this week, and I thought it was fantastic. I agree. The Justin Rose winning at Pebble Beach was, I didn't really watch a lot that Sunday, but I was dying to get on the back nine and watch what was going on this week, because Eric Cole to me was just a fascinating story and fun to watch.
Yeah, Johnny, I think some of the, I don't want to say rumblings, but some of what I heard or read about some of the mid-tier players maybe not being thrilled with the elevated versus non-elevated, because of the access to the elevated events being maybe limited to a guy like Eric Cole or even a guy like Chris Kirk. But I think this last weekend at Honda, I think it showed what it can do for those guys. It gives them just a higher likelihood of winning the tournament, because the field strength is there's just a crazy difference between those two.
Well, Chris Kirk actually had said that he skipped Riv to go to Honda and get acclimated to the time zone in Florida golf,
It's amazing.
Bermuda, everywhere, because he figured he'd had a better chance at finishing higher in that compared to that loaded field over in LA. So I think with the elevated events, they're kind of at that testing stage, though. I mean, this is they've essentially just kept the same schedule, and all the events that usually draw pretty big are all the ones that they like and everything. They just kind of elevated those ones, and that's what they were going to do. But I think as they can kind of refine the schedule and they get a season to look at it, or 2 seasons, or just to plan ahead, they can they can better schedule these and then adjust who gets in the events as well. Because yeah, you're right, you don't want you want them to be elevated, but you don't want to be exclusive. Now I know the guys higher on the FedEx Cup list and everything, they'll get the priority, so that boots those other guys further down the list and everything. So there is that. I don't know the inner workings of how that of truly how the priority works and everything, but having them all close together, they've got to figure out something a little bit with the schedule here to allow these mid-tier events to be a little bit more prevalent in the schedule a little more often, because it seems like right now they're all great events right now. I mean, they really are. The West Coast swing was unbelievable. Florida is going to be unbelievable, and you want to elevate every single one of these things, but you got to figure out there's going to be some casualties and everything. And I don't think the tour truly knows what that's going to be, and if they're going to keep the elevated events the same events, or if they're going to rotate them and change them throughout the the next couple of years. But it's still so early in it. They're kind of reacting to how LIV Golf did theirs with with the higher payouts and everything, and it was almost a reactionary thing. And I think they're just trying things, and I'm sure it'll even itself out and be a little bit smoother. But we're kind of right now is we as fans have to see how these elevated events are. If there's too many of them too early, are they really elevated? Are they real big events versus events like Honda that are good events, but are they really are there enough of them right now to kind of change the thinking and get us more excited when we do see these bigger events?
Yeah. We mentioned it a couple weeks ago that this part of the schedule is arguably the best, with just the amount of great tournaments. We got the API this week, we got the Players the following week, we got the Match Play in a couple weeks, all prior to the Masters, and we had Riv already, we had Phoenix. So there's been this saturation of just unbelievable fields. But for me, it was kind of nice just to have a little bit of a breather from that and have some, like we mentioned, just some other underdog stories, learn about these guys, because with a lot of the defections to LIV, these guys, I mean, these stories still matter. And that's, again, we'll talk about a little bit more, but I think that's the difference. Even on a week where the field was arguably less and weaker than LIV, this is just more captivating golf because it's more meaningful. Any other thoughts on Honda? Did you either one of you get to see the Chesson Hadley on course interview this week? Scott, did you see it Saturday?
I caught a little bit of it. I don't know if I caught all of it because I kind of came in, I think, the middle of it.
You
He had
didn't miss
taken his,
anything.
yeah. So it was. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to be honest with you, with the interview. But
Oh well, I don't know if you've been like the last 3-4 tournaments on CBS. You know, they did the Keith Mitchell on course
yes,
interview,
yes,
Colin Morikawa and Max. They did the same thing with Chess and Hadley, but it wasn't quite as well done on
it didn't
NBC.
pop. It didn't pop.
No, no.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what was great about what they did on CBS was Trevor Immelman was really the guy that guided those. Really, it was the whole analysis, how they played the hole, what's the strategy, what do you do with this pin or this wind, and they kind of go down this weird path of Chesson Hadley. I don't even. He was doing like a little dance out there talking about college days, and it was totally diverted from what CBS had established. Johnny, I know you saw a little bit of it.
Yeah, I think the CBS ones have been fantastic, and I know they've had more chances to do it, but what you really got to do in that situation is, I think a lot of us want to know. We want to hear the player caddy interactions. We want to know what the players are thinking at that time. And a guy like Trevor Immelman, I mean, you just kind of let him cook and just talk them through strategy, and that's what he did. And I think that's what they've got to do with NBC, is just let Brad Faxon just kind of start it, handle it, and get Dan Hicks as far away from that microphone while they've got a pro there, because he's too much of a cornball, and he used to be not as much of that, but they got to just kind of let him not say a word and let the pros handle it and just have a golf discussion. I mean, we don't care what the peacock dance or whatever stupid thing that they were talking about. I mean, some of that stuff is okay,
I think it's fine if it was just in a different arena, right?
Absolutely, it is. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that type of stuff. But we as viewers, I mean, at least me, I want to know what he's thinking. If he's, as he's walking up the fairway, talking him through, because I mean, that stuff is stuff to this day I'm still trying to improve on. Not necessarily in tournament golf, but it could be a skins game with my buddies, or it could be a 4-ball match or something like that. You just want to get into their heads, and I think that's what the amazing thing about the CBS ones were. They really got into their heads as far as golf strategy, tournament strategy. But NBC's, hopefully they kind of get some feedback from it and do it. But I love that they do it. I love that they tried it after seeing CBS do it. I think this needs to be an every week thing. I will watch it and love every bit of it. But
yeah,
again, they just gotta kind of catch up there.
I think it would be fun if they mic'd up maybe 3 or 4 different caddy player duos and get a little more organic, and not trying to interview somebody when he's playing, but just kind of monitor them talking and get that player caddy interaction and the things that are being said on the golf. To me, I'd rather see that than listening to Keith Mitchell, how he plays the shot, or, he's trying to keep his voice down because the guy's playing near him. And, it was fine. But, I think the more organic kind of player caddy interaction, I agree with you, Johnny. I think if they did 3 or 4 guys each round, there's nothing wrong with that, and you're gonna have plenty of footage. It would be really entertaining.
I thought the Morikawa one at Riv playing the 10th hole was really, really good. I thought he offered really good insight. I saw on PGA Tour Live, I think it was Thursday or Friday, they had an earpiece in Camilo Villegas's ear while he warmed up. I liked that. I thought that was cool. Just a 5-minute discussion while he hit balls and warmed up. Got the perspective on what he does to before a round. Again, just trying new things. I think NBC is there's now a gap, but I never thought I'd say this, behind CBS from what they've established early on the season. As a coverage nerd, I've been really impressed with the moves CBS has made, and I think NBC's got a little bit to catch up. I was doing my NBC bingo card. We got the Paul Azinger mention of the bear trap every other minute. Pressure. He's so nervous he can't spit. All the lines. I was loving it. Couldn't get enough of that. But so we'll see what NBC, if they got any more innovations up their sleeve. Anything else from Honda, guys? No.
Nope.
Best bets were not great. I did have Chris Kirk in my as a best bet, as a top 10 finish at plus 330. Johnny had Chris Kirk over Matt Kuchar in a head to head. Sorry, Zach Fitzgerald. And that's really all we came up with. Our win bets were pretty much a travesty. I'm quitting Aaron Wise for quite a while until he shows me otherwise. He's on my do not bet list going forward. Did either one of you catch any of the LIV tournament at Mayakoba?
I did not.
No, Johnny.
I did. I watched a little bit of it Saturday during commercials of the Honda, and I actually watched a little bit of it Sunday as well, because I had watched a little bit last year, very, very little, and sometimes it was during work. But really wanted to get a feel for how the presentation was, and with with possible commercials and other little things that they do, and was my opinion on it was it's still weird. It's a bunch of golf shots from really good golfers, which is great. I mean, there's no shortage of shots. It's a little bit less because they did commercials this time, but it's still, though, kind of hard to follow. The shotgun start, I still don't care for. And I mean, I've done plenty of those, played 4 years of college golf, and that's all we did was shotgun start. So, but these tournaments here, like, it just comes at you, like they blow the horn, and TV is just throwing haymakers at you.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no introduction into this. It is just punch after punch after punch. It's just golf shot after golf shot. There's no just soft intro. Like, if you watch ESPN Plus, or if you watch the majors and you see early ESPN coverage of golf, or masters.com, you know how they got the guys that tee off that are lower on the leaderboards there, and they kind of ease into it, and you get to see the golf course, you get to see the weather, you get to see the pin placements, you watch the stuff. So when the leaders tee off, you're like, okay, now got a pretty good idea of what the gettable holes are, what the holes you want to be safe on and everything. This is just like boom in your face, and it is like it's a little overwhelming because it's kind of hard to follow if you're not like fully focused on it. And a guy like me who's only watching it between commercial breaks, and NBC does take their fair share of commercials, so there was a decent amount of it. It's just there, and it's still they force a lot of things. Like, I think Jerry Foltz is good. I think he was good when he did Golf Channel stuff at we did the LPGA stuff. I think David Faraday was fine, and I think his act is a little old, but they're getting even more extreme. Like, they spent a good 7, 8, 9 minutes during coverage on Saturday talking about them wearing Speedos or seeing people on the beach in Speedos, and they're not really talking about the golf. And then they get really, really into the golf and over embellish how good the shot was. And it was just, it's a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's just, that's my general thing is it's a lot of really good players too. And I mean, they're, I expected them to be rusty. These guys are pretty damn good at this point, for not getting a lot of the tournament reps in, but it's just a whole bunch going on. And it doesn't feel like it's a golf tournament. It just feels just kind of like it's a whole bunch of golf shots, and there was music and other little segments, and yeah. And that's about my big takeaway though from that is not really, doesn't really feel like didn't feel like the Honda.
Right. Big one for the Crushers though.
The team winners.
Yes. You guys were slow on that one.
I saw the results. I saw that Charles Howell played well and kind of lapped the fellas. But did you get a chance to check it out? What did you think?
I did not. I didn't see a shot this week. I watched when DJ won over Labor Day weekend. I watched the whole Sunday. Oh, was that a Sunday finish? I think so. I gave it a fair chance, and I don't really have many different thoughts than what Johnny said, and I've said this in every other podcast. There's no context to what's happening out there. And we mentioned the stakes at the Honda. It just feels like there's real stakes. You got a guy like Chase Koepka who's got a guaranteed contract who couldn't get status on tour, and there's just nothing there's no competition like there is. We mentioned Eric Cole's progression to get here through Corn Ferry and the competition week to week, and there's just nothing. Those things matter to me as a viewer, as a golf fan, and there's none of that on LIV. I care about some of these guys. I care about DJ. I care about Cam Smith, Joaquin Neiman. I wish they were still on the PGA Tour, but there's not what they're doing at this point. It doesn't interest me enough to tune into it. I am all about the spectacle of it, though. Following, some of the social media stuff. I can't get enough of that, to be honest with you. But I'm just not a believer in the product. If the product was something that I felt like was a product that produced great entertainment and meant something, then I might feel differently. But that's where I stand right now. Scott, we haven't heard any of your thoughts on it really since the last time you were on, we kind of just talked about you and your career, but I didn't really get your live golf takes. So I guess now's the time.
I think, when we talked about, and we did talk about it, I was talking a little more from the player side of things when it was kind of getting organized, that I didn't like the control factor of not, of really hurting guys who are independent contractors. But I watched, I didn't watch this week, but I've watched a little bit too. I think Johnny hits on the head. It's just a lot going on when you've got rolling scoreboards of players, you got rolling scoreboards of teams. And I think if they made one change, it might make it a little more interesting. If they didn't shotgun on Sunday, their final round, they went off in the order of score and made it more like a finish of a golf tournament, so that you sort of play the first 2 days shotgunned and in position, and to get yourself into position, and then you play a normal kind of round of golf the last day. I think that would help things myself, because I don't care for the shotgun part of it either. As a spectator, I don't. I mean, it's just it's a whirlwind, and you're watching,
chaos.
The best. Yeah, you're watching the best scorer play 1 through 18, but yet the guy that comes off 18 has to go back and play 1. It's just it's a little goofy to me. I think they need to figure out a better structure to finish the golf tournament with a little more on the line, a little more of a cliffhanger, and but there's sure a lot of fun guys to watch play golf out there. I mean, there's a ton. I got a dozen guys I'd love to see still playing the PGA Tour as of right now.
Yeah, that's the bad part. And I don't want to sound like a broken record to Johnny. He's been like, oh god, he's going down this road again. But Scott, since you haven't heard me say some of these things,
go down the rabbit hole.
All the innovative things that LIV was supposed to bring teams, mainly. I feel like they've executed it poorly. We still don't really know how the teams were formed. We don't know why Taylor Gooch left the Four Aces. Was it a contract dispute? Was DJ making the decision as the captain? We have no idea. They screwed up the draft. All the things that could have made it interesting. If I watched this last Sunday, I still don't know how the team aspect totally works. I'm not, maybe I'm behind you guys. Maybe Johnny's an expert on the team aspect. I don't know, but there's just so many things that we're like, okay, this could be interesting. Team golf might be cool, but they've executed the marketing and the actual execution of it all so badly that it just kind of feels like it is on brand for a lot of their, I don't know, clown show behind the scenes things that they've been about since last June, for lack of better terms. So I don't know. I just feel like, and maybe it's a Greg Norman thing. I don't know. Maybe it's the marketing team behind the league. I feel like all the interesting things that could have been handled poorly.
Yeah, I did find out. I think the team scores, because that was my focus, actually. That was my big takeaway. I was like, Saturday, I gotta figure this out. I gotta figure out how they do the team scores. It's your 4-man team. Each day it's the 3 best scores, kind of like high school. just like a multi-day high school tournament.
Okay.
Is they just take your 3 best scores and it's just an aggregate total. But you're right though, is there's a lot of opportunities I think that they could do with this, but they've lost a lot of guys in their upper management that have suddenly resigned. And I still am convinced it's because of Greg Norman. I think either he has been given too much control, or he just assumes he's going to make most of the decisions on it, and he's not letting these people who, you know, the CFO, the CEO, I think both resigned within the last year. I mean, there's just a lot of things going on with it, and again, it's just I don't know if they have him doing it, if they don't have a mind that thinks about all these other types of factors, where it seems where it doesn't seem forced. A lot of these things they're just they you know, they're fake. They're the announcers, the little things that they do, the production, it just all seemed like it was really trying to force fun golf down your throat, and it just that's why I think, you know, why it didn't work for me. But again, I just say, you know what, we'll see how this goes. But you know, if they can't pull any money or make any money on this, I can't imagine this is going to last more than, you know, another year or two. You know, because it's whenever the you know, the Saudis decide to pull it, I mean, it's done, and then that'll be the interesting thing.
You're absolutely right. I mean, and Scott, I said a few weeks ago, I don't know if they make it past this season, or they'll make it to the end of the season, but I don't know if this thing goes another year, because they're losing so much money. And you know, something I read that over the weekend, that the you know, the PIF, the Public Investment Fund that funds this, that if they're not seeing some sort of, you know, potential return down the road, that they'll easily pull the plug. I mean, that's how quickly this thing could go. And I just don't know how they see this as a sustainable league going forward if they're losing as much money as that has been reported in the last couple of weeks in some of these articles.
Yeah, I don't think it matters how much money you have. No one likes to take it in the shorts money wise, right? I mean, I know they've got deep pockets. They can go for as long as they want to go, but I don't know, guys. I just don't have a feel for that at this point myself. But I certainly would be surprised if it doesn't go, you know, maybe 4 or 5 years if they don't really give it a chance. But I think anything's possible at this point.
All right, that's the LIV segment of the week. I appreciate hearing where you stand, Scott, on it. You know, Johnny and I, we've been arm in arm on this thing since last June, so I think we know each other's opinions. So it's nice to hear someone else chime in. Arnold Palmer Invitational this week. Let's get to that. This tournament has been such a great tournament for a long time. We know Tiger dominated this thing for quite a while. I think went in 8 times here at the Bay Hill Club and Lodge, if I could speak. Long golf course. I think it plays about 7,500 yards. You know, it's become really, really difficult the last 2 or 3 years, almost to the point where the players are like, this has gone too far. Firm greens, thick rough. And if it blows even a little bit, it gets really, really tough. I don't know, guys. What do you think about this tournament, Scott?
It's a beast of a golf course. I played it a long time ago. It's been, gosh, it's probably been 20 or 25 years since I've played there. And it looks absolutely brutal on television. I mean, the greens are brown. They're super bouncy. I don't know how much fun it would be to go there and play for 4 days, to be honest with you. Florida golf is hard enough, you know? Yeah. So I listen, it always produces great champions. The scores are, isn't it? This is the thing. I if I remember right, I think the winning score last year was maybe 12 or 13 under, somewhere in that ballpark. I could be wrong, but maybe in the last couple of years. Isn't it? I find it so amazing how good these guys are. They still managed to shoot great scores. Even when you watch, it looks like they can't even get the ball on the green on 17. And it seems like somehow they find a way to get it on the green and make 2 occasionally. It's I think it just showcases the best ball strikers, and it'll do it again this year, I'm sure.
Scotty Scheffler won last year at 5 under last year, Scott.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, it did play just as tough as it has for a while. Johnny, I want to ask you, there's a lot of guys that are playing this tournament that don't traditionally play this tournament because of the elevated status. Guys like JT, he's normally not here. I don't think Morikawa normally plays this tournament. I don't know about Rahm either, if he's normally
No, he doesn't play in it.
So is this something that you're looking at course history mattering this week? Guys like Rory, even like a Hatton who's played well here, Fitzpatrick. Those are some of these Euro guys play this course really, really well year after year.
The Euro guys do, I think, because a lot of them are good drivers of the golf ball, and with the deep rough, I think total, strokes gained, total driving is a big time stat. But I did see a tweet today. It said 6 of the 8 past winners of the API have finished top 5 the previous season. 8 of the past 8 API winners have recorded a T17 or better in the previous season. And the past 12 winners of this event have all played the API at Bay Hill the year prior and made the cut. So to answer your question, absolutely. I mean, this one, you normally would think a guy like John Rahm, how we said last week, we're like, you know what, I think you got to just bet him every event. I think this event's going to be the exception. I think you need to this golf course, I think really shocks some of these guys when they get out there, because they harden up the greens so much and the fairways are so firm and the rough is so deep that this is kind of their, this is kind of a little bit of a shock for a lot of them. And I think if you don't have good vibes going into this golf course from your previous events that you've played in or played in at Bay Hill, I don't think you I generally don't think you're going to have a good showing. I mean, for the most part. So when you look at it, guys like, I know, Tyrrell Hatton's a guy we've always picked. Obviously Scotty Scheffler won last year, and Jason Day's played well before. I think we got to really look at the past couple years and work off of that.
Scott, I'm interested from your standpoint as a player. Do you, if you feel like you're one of the better players in the field, do you want it to play tougher? Do you want the scoring to be 3, 4, 5 under winning score, or do you want it to be 15 under?
Well, I guess it depends on maybe the individual player. Speaking for myself, I would rather have a single digit win. I feel like I would have a better chance for sure, because my game is getting the golf ball in play, and probably a shootout at 22, 23, 24 under is maybe not my forte. So I would rather see it tough. Yes, I'd rather see the greens bouncy and reward some smart play and some patience, where maybe you're playing away from the stick a little bit and trusting your putter from 30, 40 feet. That's probably more where I would want it. Yeah.
And then see, I wonder, a guy like Rory, I don't know if that really fits Rory's game, winning a 4 or 5 under US Open type grinded out affair. I'm still not convinced Rory's that guy.
Very aggressive.
Yes. I feel
Very
like he would prefer the scoring to be 14, 16 under, something like that. It feels like one of those courses where you got to hit your long irons well. A lot of 175-yard shots, 200-yard shots in, par threes are long. So I'm looking at guys like that are good long iron players, long off the tee, and play tough course as well. And there's a guy that I'm pinpointing on that exactly, and we'll get to him in a second. So we mentioned the odds a little bit, that Rahm is clearly the favorite. He is at 6.5 to 1. It's a well-earned number with how he's playing. Scotty and Rory at 9 to 1 are next. And then you got a slew of guys between 20 and 30 to 1. Those guys are Zalatoris, Morikawa, Xander, Tony Finau, Patrick Cantlay, Max Homa, JT, Jason Day, and Victor Hovland. Johnny, from a betting standpoint, I know we never like to take the favorite. And I don't know if I'll ever take Jon Rahm this year, because he's going to be just too short to take. But this feels like a week where you would feel okay not taking him because of the lack of course history versus a guy like Scotty or Rory who have both won here in the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Course fit and the fact that he hasn't played here. Um, and he's got to regress at some point, right? I mean, like laws of averages, he's got to regress and not win, I would think at some point. But I'm not going to bet him. He's not going to be on my card at all this week here just because I'm not sure. I guess if anybody under that 20-1, so we're looking at those top three there. I know Scotty Scheffler did win last year, but he also repeated at Waste Management. Do I think he's going to win this week? No, but I mean, top 10 at plus odds. This golf course, it's going to be windy. They're talking gusts 20 miles an hour on Thursday, 30 plus miles an hour on Friday. And then the wind is going to shift and come from the north, and it's going to get a little bit cooler, and it's still going to be breezy. And so he's a great driver of the ball, great ball striker, one of the best in the world. So maybe not on a win bet because that seems a little bit short unless I could somehow build it up to get him closer to 14 or 15. But I don't necessarily like him as a win. I'll like him though as a top 10 at plus money.
Scott, are you in on Scheffler or Rory this week?
I didn't like the way Scheffler. He seemed to have the lefts with the driver, in my opinion. I don't think you're going to be able to get away with that this week. I love him.
Yeah.
I do. I agree with you with Rory. Rory. One of the things with Rory is Rory hits his iron so high, and he's just so strong. He just always seems to think he can get at everything, and this is just not the golf course to do it. So, could I see him playing well? I could. I kind of like out of the folks that you were talking about odds wise. I kind of like Tony Finau this week. I think he's ready to play some really good golf. He looked good when he's played this year. To me, he looks like he's close. And I've got a long shot that I think there's going to be a European that's going to have a great chance this year because of the weather that's coming, the wind, and somebody who hasn't really played that great, but I just feel like he's going to make a move this year is Tommy Fleetwood. I'm waiting for a Tommy Fleetwood sighting. I just have been feeling it coming from him a little bit. And I think that it's going to be a Matty Fitzpatrick or Tommy Fleetwood or somebody like that that's a European player is going to play in this wind and play some good golf.
God, I'd love it if you were right about Tommy Fleetwood. It's got to happen at some point in the U.S.
It has to. It has to.
Johnny, the guys I mentioned in the 20s there, I already bet Will Zalatoris. He doesn't have the history I would love on this golf course. I think he was like finished around 40th last year, but just the type of game in translation of the golf course, what it asks you to do. We know he plays tough golf courses very well. We've seen that from his performances in the majors. We know he's one hell of an iron player, one of the 5 best iron players on the tour, and he's very, very long. And he has shown that he seems to be fully recovered from the back injury last fall. He had a good finish out in Hawaii, and then really came on strong at Riv. And he played better and better each day. So I like what I saw there. The putting's always going to be a thing, at least for this year. It's going to give you, if you have money on him and he's in the lead coming down the stretch, you are going to be so nervous at every 4-footer, and you're not going to want to watch, but that's part of the thrill of it. So I'm in on Will this week.
I am too. And, he played really good at Riv, especially those last 3 days. And I've always said he's a big game hunter. He plays really well on big, tough golf courses. And, I think he's that type of guy who is real well suited for that 7, 8, 9, 10 under par winning score. Because he's got such a good all around game. And yeah, the putting, as we'll say, as long as this podcast goes and his career goes and everything, is terrifying to watch, but he owns it though. And that's what, like, I can remember him at Southern Hills is hitting those weird looking putts, but making everything that he had to make because he just owns that putting stroke. And, it's not pretty by any means, but it generally, when he's mentally into it and fully focused and sees his lines and everything, I I trust him to make putts in these types of events, and this is the golf course that would fit his type of game there. And I'm going to go one more here. Is Colin Morikawa. I know he missed the cut at Scottsdale. I think he's getting close. I'm close to giving up on him, like you are with Aaron Wise there. But of those guys, though, I think he's got the game to win at this golf course. I mean, he can win at any golf course. You know, what am I saying there? But I think the game is close, and it's just a little bit. You know, if he can just be an average putter for 4 days, you know, just don't give shots to the field like he had done for you know, starting with that final round at Century, and then, you know, going in through the West Coast swing and everything. But he's a guy who I'm going to roll with this week, and I'm not going to give him any more chances here before I have to move on. But you know, I kind of like where he's at.
I like that pick.
Scott, going back to Zalatoris, I'm interested. What is your explanation or your thoughts on his short putting stroke? I mean, what the hell?
The quickness of it, the jabbiness of it, you mean?
Oh, just everything. Everything
Yeah.
looks different than when he's over a 15-footer.
You know, I'm not a big fan of the arm lock with the claw. It just puts you in such a funky position. Everybody who puts that way, even oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. The tall, skinny guy that's the older guy that won the US Open. Who am I talking? Who am I thinking of?
Webb Simpson.
Thank you. The guy from North Carolina. Even he, when he was winning the Players a few years back, he looked funky over putts, you know, and it's kind of a short jabby.
Yeah.
I guess it's bad enough that we don't want to see him with the short one, I suppose. I mean, I guess that's the crutch for him, is to get it on his arm. But I just would almost rather see him just put his hands on it normally with his right hand and see what that looked like. That, I think that would look better. But I think he puts okay, guys. I don't think he's as bad as everybody says he is, in my opinion. I think he looks I don't think he looks nearly as bad as some people talk about. But
Yeah.
man, when you hit it as good as him, you don't have to make as many. You
true.
know,
That's
you just
true.
don't. I mean, it's kind of like what Rom went through when he was hitting it so good and he wasn't making quite as many, and everyone was questioning his putting. And he was even saying, "Hey, listen, guys, I'm hitting more greens than everybody. I mean, my putting stats are going to look a little funky, but I think he's a good pick. I really do. I like him just coming back from the injury, and I'm not, you know, I think he's still probably got a little ways to go, but I sure like that kid."
Johnny, for time purposes, we're running close to an hour here. Past 30-1, is there anyone that you've pinpointed as a win bet or a guy to look out for this week?
Past 30-1.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I mentioned Tyrrell Hatton a couple of minutes ago. I don't love him in this elevated field, but he's one of those guys. I do want to echo the Fleetwood pick. Didn't really consider him, but I was looking though while you guys were chatting, and he's had 3 top 10s here. Finished 20th last year, so he's got real good course history, and it does always seem that he does strike it real well here. So I don't know what his number's at, because I hadn't even looked at it yet.
70-1.
7. I mean, that's a
payout.
That's an auto bet right there.
Yeah.
And then also one other guy, we'll go Keegan Bradley. He just does stuff. He just does stuff, and you hate it every single time. But I mean, is it a bad bet though? I mean,
No,
75-1.
He's okay.
What about Tom Kim?
God, man, is this course a little too long for Tom Kim?
I think it's too long for him. And I think just the lack of course history here.
Yeah.
He seems to get a little impatient when things aren't going his way. I think it's just the learning curve of becoming a PGA Tour golfer. Kind of like, you know, like what John Rahm did, you know, when he get a little irritated with his game or with a breaker or something like that. Maybe not to that effect, but I think it affects Tom Kim more. But I think this is a course though that maybe eventually, you know, if he maybe he has to pick up a few more yards, but
I'm confident Tom Kim isn't going to react to some of the things that John Rahm has reacted to, or in the manner he has, like last year when I was at the Memorial and I almost saw John Rahm kill a cameraman when he tossed his club in the air.
Oh man.
I have half circled Cameron Young because I love Cameron Young, and at 35-1, it feels like a Cameron Young type of course. But I'm not sold on it yet, but I'm debating that. We talked about Keith Mitchell before we went live. Johnny and I did. He's at 50. He's been playing phenomenal golf so far this season. Played great at Pebble. I thought his play at Riviera was awesome. For 2 days,
Very good.
he went with Max Homa and John Rahm, and I felt like he matched him shot for shot. His putting really let him down. He's got a great course history here. Is it too much of a everyone's on the longer shot, Keith Mitchell? I don't know, but I like the way he's playing golf right now, so I'm interested in him. Down the board though, I really don't have anything outside of 50-1, guys. I was gonna ask you guys last question with who we've had winning the elevated events so far. It's been the stars, it's been the top guys. I mean, is that going to continue, you think?
Go ahead, John.
I think so for the most part. I mean, yeah, we might get a couple questionable ones going in there, but I mean, with that first place prize money and the fields that these guys want, they want to win these events. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing. Yes, it is the prize money, but I mean, to come in there and, these are like WGC events, as far as the strength of the field and everything. And right. I think these guys, they want to win this stuff. This is what they're gearing a lot of what they're scheduled towards when they don't have a major nearby. And, we don't have one here for several more weeks. So, it's a time, this is a time when these guys want to be playing well coming into Florida, and they want to test their game because they got the Players Championship here in a week, and you get this event and then the next one, two great events. So I think we'll see that for the most part, just because these guys, these top players are just so elite. But it would not surprise me that you get a guy, not a journeyman, but a younger guy who does show up. But I think fewer and far in between. I think that'll be pretty cool though when that happens. That's what I'd like to actually see, is these young guys make a name for themselves, win the eye, win, with the FedEx Cup points, the money, the notoriety, and elevate their game and move it going forward.
Final word, Scott.
I mean, listen, I think this tournament brings the cream to the top. I mean, it always seems to, in my opinion. So I think you're going to see a big name win this week. I really do. I sure like Tommy Fleetwood, and I'd love to see it too. And I think he's a good pick, but yeah, I mean, listen, I honestly, it's hard to go against John Rahm for me. I mean, he's just playing so good right now. And when you're hitting it that good and you're that confident, or a Rory, it doesn't matter if you're playing Bay Hill or you're playing the Players or you're playing wherever. I mean, they're just so good. I think it's going to be a hell of a golf tournament. I really do. I've been strolling through the field as we've been sitting here, and I mean, and you could pick. I mean, you can toss a coin on a lot of people here. In my opinion, I think there's just a strong field, and we're going to see fireworks this week.
We were talking about John Rahm last week, that strokes gained stats, just a lot of the metrics show he's playing some of the best golf in the last 25 years. I mean, it's
no question.
And the thing is, guys get on these heaters, and we've seen it. They keep winning. We saw it last year with Scheffler. We've seen it with DJ, Spieth. Guys get on these runs. Jason Day back in the day. I mean, they just find a way to win 4 out of 6, 4 out of 7. So it may just be Rahm's time again. It's boy, when we get to the Masters, it's going to be hard not to go John Rahm's way when we go there. But all right, boys, Arnold Palmer Invitational, we did it. Appreciate your thoughts, and of course being here past 10 o'clock on a Monday night. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Your best bet, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're interested in checking us out on video versus the podcast, always check us out on YouTube. We'll have our picks up on Wednesday for the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.